I think there are certain places in this country where people are not living side by side, where we are a very divided, segregated society. If you look at the centre of Bradford, for example, 50% of people were not born in the UK. If you look at the centre of Luton, almost 50% of people only arrived in the UK in the last 10 years. If you look at parts of Dagenham, the white British population has reduced by 50% in the last 25 years.
Is that a problem?
So I think, well, the pace of change is immense, and people are sick of that. People want to see mass migration ended. They want to return to the levels of immigration that we have enjoyed as a country.
Why is it a problem if the percentage of white people has fallen or risen?
Because you can't successfully integrate people at this speed into our country.
But why does the colour of their skin matter?
It's not about the colour of someone's skin. It's about whether or not someone has just arrived in our country. And if you have places...
But that is a different point,
If you have places...
That is a different point.
If you have places like the centre of Bradford, where half the population has only just arrived in our country, how can you expect those people to know our history, our heritage, our norms, our traditions, to be well integrated? If you see profound change in a community like Dagenham, where within 25 years, the people living in the community has changed almost beyond recognition, understandably, some people who live there will feel that the place that they knew no longer exists. And that is why people are so frustrated and angry at the decisions that politicians have made in recent years, why we have to take action.
Former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick ignited a fierce national debate this week after clashing with a broadcaster over demographic changes in parts of the UK. Citing statistics from Bradford and Dagenham, two urban areas that have undergone significant ethnic shifts over recent decades, Jenrick warned that many Britons feel dispossessed in their own country, prompting a flurry of backlash and support in equal measure. For critics, Jenrick's framing harks back to the dog whistles of nativist politics, but with a gloss of policy, wonk respectability. Yet to his supporters, many of whom are vocal across right-leaning media and social platforms, Jenrick is giving voice to anxieties that mainstream politicians have long ignored. You can't just bulldoze centuries of cultural cohesion and expect people to smile through it, tweeted one user in response to a clip of the interview. He's saying what millions are thinking. This sentiment is not without precedent. Since the early 2000s, census data has tracked a steady diversification of urban centers in Britain, driven by both immigration and internal migration patterns. In places like Barking and Dagenham, the white British population has indeed declined significantly, from over 80 in 2001 to less than 45 in 2021, according to Office for National Statistics data. What makes Jenrick's comments politically volatile is not the data, but the implications he draws from it. His tone suggests that demographic change is not merely a statistic, but an existential threat to a specific cultural identity, a position that critics argue is both inflammatory and simplistic. Jenrick's re-emergence on this front comes amid speculation that he is positioning himself for a more prominent post-Sunak leadership bid, perhaps not in the immediate future, but certainly in the ideological reshuffling that is already underway within the Tory right. Having resigned in protest last year over what he called weak migration enforcement, Jenrick has since leaned into rhetoric that blends culture, national identity, and the language of order and control. In doing so, he has aligned himself with figures like Suella Braverman and Kemi Badenoch, who also speak of an overwhelmed Britain struggling under the weight of multiculturalism and mass migration. But unlike Braverman, Jenrick packages his pitch in the language of institutions and governance, emphasizing not just values but administrative capacity. He talks not only about identity but about assimilation, cohesion, and legitimacy. The clash this week reveals an uncomfortable truth for Britain's political establishment. The country is still deeply divided not just over how many migrants should be allowed in, but who belongs once they are here. Jenrick's remarks may appeal to voters who feel alienated by rapid demographic and cultural changes, especially in areas where integration has been uneven or poorly managed. But His critics warn that focusing on ethnic proportions rather than structural policy risks, turning complex social dynamics into simplistic ethnic binaries.
Yeah, thank you very much. Look, we've been doing a whole show from here just to expose the actual extremity of the problem, and I'm going to ask you to follow me inside here. So we are just outside the Calais port, and what we've got is a disused warehouse that, if you follow me inside here, is absolutely full of migrant tents, illegal migrant tents. This is a room full of people from Sudan. I've been speaking to a lot of them. They say that they are desperate to come to Britain. Now, what we're looking at here is a group of people who can't really afford the continual boat journeys. So this is near a lorry port in Sudan, in Calais, full of people from Sudan. And the reason that they're here is because you don't have to pay anything to try to climb into the back of a lorry. If we walk through, I've never seen anything quite like this in my life. It's like a patchwork quilt of people just living here permanently, and this is the reality of the situation. Now, I just want everyone at home to understand that every single person in this room is absolutely desperate to come to Britain. The only reason they are here is to try to come to Britain. Now, I'm going to walk outside a bit now. Hello, how are you? Are you okay?
Okay, I'm
Good to see you. And you're from Sudan?
Yeah, from Sudan.
And you want to come to Britain?
No.
England? England?
Yeah, we go England.
You go England?
Yeah.
Why? Good life?
Good life, yeah.
Okay, all right, well, there we go. Well, we are going to be doing a show from 9 till 11 p.m. I've got a lot of this, I've got a huge amount of other content as well, and I will see you at 9 p.m. for my show. You're not going to want to miss this.
The bitter wind that cuts through the Calais coastline offers little mercy to the rows of makeshift tents pitched in muddy, windswept fields. This is where Gib News presenter Patrick Christie's recently went live, offering viewers a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the growing humanitarian crisis unfolding just miles from British shores. His on-the-ground report from the heart of the migrant camps has reignited debate over the Channel crossings, the UK's border policy, and the political inertia gripping both Westminster and Brussels. "I've never seen anything quite like this in my life," Christie said, visibly shaken as he walked through tents stitched together from plastic sheets and tarpaulin. "These are people living in limbo, and no one seems to have a clue what to do with them." Broadcast amid rising tensions over illegal Channel crossings and a brewing diplomatic storm between the UK and France, Christie's coverage was more than a report. It was a statement. In contrast to sanitized policy discussions in Parliament, his footage presented the Channel crisis as what it truly is: a collision of desperation, dysfunction, and geopolitical neglect. The camps in Calais have become a grim symbol of Europe's migration deadlock. Despite periodic attempts by French authorities to dismantle them, the settlements continue to return, rebuilt by new arrivals fleeing war, persecution, and poverty from countries like Afghanistan, Sudan, Eritrea. The conditions are appalling. Limited sanitation, no formal shelter, and a near-total absence of legal infrastructure have turned these spaces into breeding grounds for disease, trafficking, and exploitation. And still, hundreds remain, fueled by one belief: the hope of reaching Britain. The report comes at a time when the UK's immigration policies are under fierce scrutiny. The controversial Rwanda plan, designed to deport certain asylum seekers to East Africa, remains stalled by legal challenges. Meanwhile, domestic pressures continue to mount over housing migrants in hotels, community tensions in coastal towns, and the slow processing of asylum claims. What makes Christie's report especially potent is the timing. With local elections looming and immigration polling high on voter priorities, his footage will undoubtedly be weaponized by both sides of the political divide. Some will cite it as evidence of the need for tougher deterrence. Others will argue it proves the need for safe legal routes and better international cooperation. But the reality, as Christie's made painfully clear, is that those stranded in Calais are caught between policy and paralysis. They are neither the faceless threat portrayed in tabloid caricatures nor the flawless victims idealized by some NGOs. They are human beings, living in desperation, waiting for a chance at something better.